All right, looks like our numbers are starting to even out here. So we will go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to July's Be Well Lunch and Learn titled Preventing Burnout. We're so excited to have Michelle Zellner back with us today. We were just talking, the last time Michelle was here was in February, so we can't believe it's been that long, but we are excited to have her to talk about burnout. Before passing it over to her, I just want to remind you that these are recorded. So if you are unable to stay with us for the entire session, you will be getting a follow-up email that has both the slides and a link to the recording in it that you can access later on. Second, if you have any questions or comments for Michelle, she does a great job at watching the Q&A and the chat boxes throughout. So feel free to drop your comments or your questions in there, and we will get to as many as time allows for. So with this, Michelle, welcome back. I will pass this over to you.
Well, thank you. It's a delight to be back with all of you. It looks like we might be record-breaking attendance, which is very exciting. Quick background on me. My name is Michelle Zellner. I have a wellness business called Better Beings. That has been my mission for almost 27 years to help people be better human beings physically, mentally, and emotionally. Very proud to partner with your EAP support link to get to chat with all of you on important topics. I will definitely share my views, thoughts, and opinions, but I love to hear from you and just all learn together because I think that is really how we have the best experience. And you can tell we have a lot to cover. And so maybe to get us started, I like to get a little gauge of my audience. Before we even dive into what is burnout, how do you know if you're there, what are the causes, let's get a little just self assessment to start us. If you had to give yourself a score on how burned out you are, and this could be job related, it could be just burned out on life, it could be just burned out on, whatever it is, just burnout in any way, shape, or form. Scale of 1 to 10. One, I don't even know what burnout is, couldn't identify it, have no clue, definitely not anywhere close to it. 10, I am 100% burned out. I think a self assessment is always a nice place to start because as we go through the content, you'll either realize, yep, you're spot on, or, maybe I now have new awareness and maybe I give myself a different score, or I have a different appreciation or a different perspective. Ultimately, whatever your score is now, hopefully, we're going to get you closer to a 1. And if you're close to a 1 already, let's keep you there for sure. So thank you. A few have shared. Got a bunch of 4s and 5s. Pretty good. So far, nobody's a 10, which is fantastic. I do have a 9.5. That hurts my heart, but we're going to help you. Yeah. So thank you all for sharing. This is fantastic. It gives me a good sense of just where the audience is. Keep in mind that burnout is a different definition for everybody, right? And your your idea of burned out, it could be one thing, and that exact same idea for somebody else is not burnout at all. So this is a very unique experience. It is very uniquely defined. And what I hope to help you sort out is one, what is it? Two, why is this happening? And three, what can I do about it? I really think that one of the biggest contributing factors to burnout is that we're living in an environment, and that would be modern society. We've been living here for quite some time, but we're living in an environment that a human was not designed for. And then you take all of the individual characteristics of each individual human, and whether you have the skills, the tools, the resiliency, right, the innate personality traits that either put you more at risk for burnout or maybe help buffer you from burnout. There's that. And then you throw in your individual experiences that you've been going through at any given time. There's that. And it's the combination of all of those things that's really going to determine if and how and when you might experience burnout. We start with identifying the stress response. Because when I think of burnout, I mean, we can burn out on anything, right? If you've ever been on a diet, curious, has anybody ever been on a diet? Out of 210 people, my guess is roughly 200. There's a good chance that you were on a diet and then you went off the diet. Well, why did you go off the diet? Because it wasn't sustainable, it was too restrictive, you were making a lot of effort and maybe not feeling like you're getting the results that you should be getting. So why keep doing it? Right. So you burned out, you stopped. I was a gymnast growing up. I burned out. How do I know? Because I quit. That's how I know I burned out. I quit. I was done. When we talk about burnout from a human's perspective, it means your human is done. Physically, mentally, or emotionally, cannot take anymore. And very often that is the result of unmanaged chronic stress, too many things coming all at once that we can't handle, too many of those things coming and lasting for an extended period of time, or the combination of not having the ability to take on those things and recover from it. So you think about the stress response, and we're all programmed for survival. That's why we're all still here, because of the stress response. Back in the day, fight or flight was a relatively rare experience, and it was fairly acute, right? I either ran fast enough and far enough and did not get eaten by the tiger, or I was slow and I was dinner. I either purged myself of the poisonous berries that I ate, or I was not able to do that and it destroyed me, shut down my organs, and I died. I either defended and healed from the infection, or I didn't, and I didn't make it. It was relatively rare and it was fairly acute. Fast forward to modern life, unless you have taught your human to not kick into fight or flight when there is no threat to your life, it might be kicking into fight or flight over and over and over and over and over. And that fight or flight is chemical chaos in the body. It is complete chemical imbalance, which is great when there's an actual threat. Because when you're under a threat, you need to think, feel, and act differently than when you're not under a threat. But if I am consistently thinking, feeling, and acting differently and there really is no threat, then the body and the brain are all kinds of struggle, right? And it's trying to survive. You can see here we need a little bit of stress. That's actually called a sense of purpose, a sense of value, a sense of contribution, sense of accomplishment, a sense of belonging, right? Those things are critical for us to thrive. It's when all of that becomes too much for too long or too frequently that now maybe I can't handle it. Your ability to handle things is also unique to your particular time in life and the particular set of skills that you do or don't have, and the ability to use those skills and tools. And so, like I said, this can be a very fluid situation and experience. And I think that's why it's important for us to always stay tuned into ourselves. Because that's the only way that you know you might be headed there. So here's a couple of other ways to look at it, right? And this could be focused on a work situation. It could be maybe a personal situation. What I will say is you take your human everywhere, right? So just imagine separating your unique named individual self from the human being that's operating you. I'm Michelle. Michelle's human's job is to make sure Michelle survives. That's it. Your human's job is to make sure you survive. That's it. Doesn't matter if Michelle is happy, if she's thriving, if she feels competent, if she feels like she has value. My human doesn't care. Survival is the only thing that matters. So anytime my human perceives Michelle to be in danger or threatened, it's going to help me be able to fight, flee, or defend myself. And all of that, again, is just rooted in our survival. So, whether this is a situation happening in my personal life or it's a situation related to work, my human is impacted. So, if I'm feeling burned out in one facet of life, 100% it is going to impact every other facet of life, which is why we have to be kind of looking and aware on all of the different factors that are going to start to maybe increase our risk for experiencing some kind of burnout. Who is at risk? If you're a human being living in modern society, you're at risk. That's baseline. So I would say everybody's at risk, but what is your degree of risk, right? And again, I mentioned in the beginning all the different factors. Let's talk about a few of the specifics. I'm going to highlight a few that aren't here, they'll be talked about later, but some that I think are really critical. Your innate personality traits. Okay, we now have 230 people. I want to see how many identify as a perfectionist. Just pop that in the chat or the Q&A. Either, a yes, just give me a yes. If you identify as a perfectionist, give me a yes. A whole bunch of them, which is not surprising. So I'm not one, just letting you know where I am. I grew up with them, my dad and my sister. They are perfectionists. I have been exposed to perfectionists my whole life. I work with a lot of them. I work with a lot of recovering perfectionists. There is no doubt in my mind that somebody with perfectionist tendencies is at higher risk for burnout. And I believe this because I see how much time and effort goes into being perfect. And then how much time and effort is spent worrying about being perfect, and how much time and effort is spent doubting and judging and criticizing when something didn't go perfectly, and second guessing and questioning. And all of that time and effort is exhausting. It means I can't take care of other things because I'm spending time and effort on that. And so that already puts you at a higher risk than somebody maybe who is not a perfectionist, because we don't spend a lot of that time and effort on that. Somebody who has a significant amount of empathic tendencies, right? Where we take on the emotions of others. We want to help. We're in a caring or a giving profession. Or maybe that's just our nature. Maybe it's not my profession, but I'm the person in life that people come to for their things. We feel a sense of responsibility for making sure that somebody else is okay, that we can save and do all the things, right? Again, that's a lot of expectation for one human. And think about all the humans you might be doing that for, which means there's probably not a lot left for your own human. So if you have that kind of tendency, you're definitely at a higher risk for burnout. A people pleaser, for sure, at a higher risk for burnout. When you are faced with overwhelming demands, right? Maybe you're in a phase of life where there are excessive demands at work and there are excessive demands in a family situation and there are excessive demands on you personally. Again, a human can only take so much. Maybe I could take that excessive demand if nothing else was going on, but that one on top of that one on top of that one on top of that one, yeah, that could sure lead to burnout. Perhaps I am not a strong, robust human, right? Maybe physically, mentally, or emotionally, I haven't built the strength up to the degree that somebody else has who now could face all those things that I'm facing. They seem to be handling it just fine. How come I'm not? Well, maybe because I'm not as strong in those ways. I don't have the tools or the skills. I either have not yet had the opportunity to develop the tools and the skills and the strength, or I've had the opportunity, I just didn't take it, or I had the opportunity, I didn't even know to take it. I didn't have the support, the guidance to have somebody help me develop those tools and skills, right? It could be any and all of those things. So you identify for yourself, right? What degree of risk are you at? And then operating out of the realm of current reality. Because I will just tell you personally, my life at this moment in time, I am at a much lower risk for burnout than I was my life exactly 1 year ago today. I'm the same person. The situations around me are very, very, very different. So keep all of this in mind as we continue the conversation, to be thinking about your own situation, right? This is a good kind of bullet list of things to think about. And again, I'm going to take the at work piece out of the equation. If you're cynical in something, there's a very good chance it's going to spill over into other elements, right? Um, so just again, evaluating also, sorry, I got a mosquito flying around my head. It's very annoying and it probably has West Nile, and I would like to not get that. Sorry. Um, what is normal for you, right? This is another really important element of identifying if something's different. So this means you actually have a decent sense of self-awareness about what is normal for you. So have you become cynical or critical, or maybe more cynical or more critical? Do you feel like you have to drag yourself, right? You're not excited to just go do. You got to kind of like kick yourself out of bed. Irritable and impatient. Have we had a little bit of a shorter, bandwidth to deal with irritants? Do you lack the energy, like physically, like life is just hard? Maybe you accomplish things and you're just like, meh, cares, no big deal, right? You're not even getting a sense of satisfaction or pride. Do you feel disillusioned, right? Like the why bother? What's the point? Doesn't matter anyway. Are you turning to something to escape or to numb the way you're feeling, to distract yourself from the things that you don't want to deal with, whether it's food or drugs or alcohol, or it's retail therapy, or it's zoning out on your binging shows, or it's excessive gaming, or whatever, right? It's something that we're taking to an extreme, or something that we're turning to that probably doesn't have a real healthy purpose in life. What about sleep habits and appetite? Do you see a change? Sleeping more, sleeping less, eating more, eating less. You know what's normal, you know when something's different. Unexplained physical complaints. We're going to get into that detail in just a moment here, but do you have anything going on that you can't seem to figure out what is causing this? There's a good chance that it's rooted in chronic stress. So how many of these you check obviously is also going to help you determine what degree of risk you're at. And identifying these, this is that self-awareness. Let me check in with myself to evaluate what's going on. I think a lot of times, especially when we are being pulled in multiple directions or we're having things coming at us constantly, we just get so into survival mode that we become very disconnected from the warning signs. And that's what all of these are. These are all warning signs. Your human is always trying to get your attention when it's not super happy, right? It's trying to let you know that something's off, it's out of balance, it's not content. And sometimes we're so focused and zoned in and just head down and push through and move on and keep going that we're very disconnected from our own human. We don't even know the signs, or we dismiss them as something else, or we don't really have perspective and appreciation of how far away from our norm we happen to be. So getting tuned in. I have another little tool. It's called the BOSS method, BOSS. It's something I created. It's basically you are the boss of you. And if you're the boss of anything and you want the outcome to be a certain way, you got to do certain things as a boss. So the B is 3 parts: be quiet, be still, and breathe. Most people do not like to be quiet or be still. And most of us are not good at breathing because we've gotten so used to operating in fight or flight. At the very best, we're shallow chest breathing, and very often we're actually holding our breath. So we have to be quiet and be still and breathe. And while we're doing that, you're going to turn your eyeballs in and just observe. That's the O, observe what's going on in here. Your thoughts, your emotions, where are they? What are they? You're not judging, you're not criticizing, you're not trying to problem solve. You're just observing, you're gathering information. The first S is scan, head to toe. Are there any other signs, generally some physical signs, that my human is telling me that it's not really happy? Maybe I have digestive issues. Maybe I have a rash that won't go away. Maybe I have muscle tension, right? Any physical sign. Once you've gathered all that information, the second S is serve. If I have noticed some things, what can I, Michelle, do to serve my human to get me to a better place? Maybe there's something I can do in the moment. Maybe there's something I can do as a lifestyle habit. Maybe there's a big thing that if I really devoted time and attention to addressing it, it would help get me to another place. So that's my own personal little tactic to have a sense of self, right? To do that self assessment on a day to day basis, or just as, kind of a regular check in to get a gauge of where am I today? Where am I this week? Where am I this month? Where am I at this phase in my life? Right? Just a way to check in. Let's look at some of the causes of burnout. And again, this is where you get to check your boxes. And I'll go through most of these, but I think you can get pretty clear as to what most of these mean. I want to start with relationship mismatch and really identify what does that mean. And this one really speaks loudly to me because as I, left gymnastics when I was 17 years old, just reflecting on that time as 10 years of a gymnast and doing things and how my attitude definitely shifted at certain times and why I decided to leave when I did and why when I was in 8th grade, I quit. It lasted about 48 hours because my coaches and my parents talked me back into not quitting. But what I came to realize much, much, much later was my burnout in gymnastics was because of a relationship mismatch. And what that means is I was devoting my time, my energy in ways that did not align with my core values, and particularly competition. So as I was trying to figure out as a young adult, what are my principles? What are my values, right? What are all these things that I should be spending energy on? I had this list of words, and one of them was competition. And that set all the light bulbs off. That made complete sense. Competition is not a value of mine. I'm not competitive. I'm just not. It's not good or bad. It just isn't something I'm just not. Gymnastics is a competitive sport. That's what it is. You get up and you are judged. What I realized as I reflected back was my attitude really started to shift as we entered competition season. Now, I didn't know that was happening, right? I love gymnastics. I love it for the physical challenge, for the sense of accomplishment, for doing cool things with your body, for, the connections with my teammates and my coaches and all of that. I did not love competing. So when you are operating out of alignment with a core value, a principle, a priority, you're going to burn out, right? We can run out of alignment for a short period of time and be okay. You can't run out of alignment for an extended period of time and be okay. And that's why I lasted in gymnastics for 10 years, because you are not competing every single day, right? It's a season and then competition's over. And now we can just get back to doing gymnastics. And that's why I had a little bit of longevity, but it really got, the longer I went, the less I liked this. And the more that affects your attitude, which affects your output, which affects your attitude, which it creates a snowball. Never taking a break. If you are someone who go, 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 no human was designed to do that, right? Whether it's I never take a break from work, or I go from this busy, busy, busy thing to this busy, busy, busy thing, and there's really never a break for this. right? It just isn't going to work long term. Unrealistic expectations. This is a big one too. First of all, whose expectations are they? Where did they come from? Who has set them? Sometimes these are self-inflicted. And there's a good chance that when you set the expectation, you truly believe that it is realistic. When you take a step back and look at all the things, you might identify that, wow, yeah, maybe that isn't realistic. Maybe this is something I could do at a different point in life because life looked very different from what life looks like today. But to think I can continue to do this, even though life looks nothing like it used to look, is not realistic. Or maybe I can actually do more than I used to be able to do because life is different than it used to be. And so I can elevate my expectations. Sometimes the expectation is brought upon us, and that person is establishing an expectation based on what they're able to do. And so they think you should be able to do it. But you're not that person. You don't have the same skill set, you don't have the same capacity, the same capability. And this goes both ways, right? Maybe I'm diminishing an expectation of somebody because I don't think they can. And yet maybe they have way more skills and tools than I recognize. Maybe they don't even know they have them. They just need to be challenged. So there's all kinds of ways to be looking at this. Getting stuck in a rut implies that you recognize that you're getting stuck in a rut. Well, how do you know if you're getting stuck in a rut? Usually you're not that excited, right? You're starting to lose motivation to do things that you generally would otherwise like to do. You're starting to be a little bit cynical, a little bit apathetic, right? You're cutting corners, you're shortchanging things. These are all ways to identify that you're not being challenged, right? And to kind of coast along is probably really healthy to do that for a period of time. But even when you coast, I grew up in the country and we had this gigantic hill that we drove a stick shift Volkswagen Bugs. We put that baby in neutral and we coasted all the way. And if you timed it just right, you literally could coast with the engine off right into the garage and be done. Well, sometimes we didn't time it just right. And you're coasting and you don't make it to the driveway. And now you're stuck. And now you got to restart everything, and that's a lot harder. So you identify if you are headed towards getting stuck, you're headed towards stagnation, and then you do something about it. Lack of self-care and coping skills. I think I love it's in the center because I really think this is the hub. It really is about, is your human physically, mentally, and emotionally strong and resilient to take on challenges of life? Because that's what life is. It's a series of challenges. And if I am not nurturing and nourishing my human with what is required for a human to thrive, well, how can I expect my human to thrive? Number one, I might not even really give my human a great chance to be okay when all the stuff starts coming my way. So check off the boxes, right? Work-life imbalance. I mean, obviously we're in our income earning years. That's why we all work. And hopefully we have some joy and passion and sense of pride and fulfillment from that. And yet, are we also devoting time and energy to the other important aspects of life? I don't know. That's where you have to figure it out, right? Losing sight of values and passion. And again, that's a big mental shift that as you start headed towards the burnout direction, it becomes a more rapid descent, which is why it's helpful to avoid it in the first place. And then the focusing on the negative and lack of control. Here's the thing. I know a lot of you, especially my perfectionists, you're not going to like this, but I promise you it's true. You control no one and nothing except for you. I control no one and nothing except for me. I control what I think, feel, say, and do, I do not, cannot, never will be able to control what anybody else thinks or feels or says or does. I don't control what comes my way. I have the option of deciding what to do in the face of what comes my way. The sooner you recognize that you are in control of nothing except for you, you're not in control of outcomes, you're in control of your choices, your actions, your behaviors. That's it. The easier your life is going to be. Now, that's a hard concept to wrap your head around, especially when you feel like, oh, if I do this, this will happen, or this should happen. If you're living your life in the world of should, it's gonna be a lot of disappointment for sure. What was this? Oh, so the boss. Be still, be quiet, breathe. That's the B. O is observe. S is scan. Scan head to toe for any signs. And then the second S is serve. How can I serve myself? That is my own little boss method. Let's talk about the consequences. I mean, I could literally just put the word everything up here and that would be accurate, right? Because it could be any or everything. So let's kind of dissect some of these. A lot of these are the result of the chronic chemical imbalance that fight or flight puts us in. But keep in mind that that stress response doesn't just exist in its bubble. It is going to alter how you think, how you feel, and how you act. It is going to determine the next choice you do or don't make. It's going to determine how the next interaction you have is going to go. It's going to determine if you sleep or not, which is going to determine a whole bunch of other things later. It's going to determine how much energy and motivation you do or don't have. So that stress response doesn't just happen and then it's done and has no adjacent consequences. It has a huge domino effect, which is also going to impact the health of your human, right? So some of these are the result of all of that. Some of these are because we're programmed for fight or flight, right? Something like anxiety, where it is natural for us to be on high alert for danger. That's how our brains are programmed. If I can't even detect a threat, how can I fight or flee or defend myself from it? So our brains are wired for this. If I haven't taught my human to bring my mind to somewhere that's helpful versus just let it do what it does, that very easily could spill into anxiety, which also could spill into depression, right? Because now we have some internal narratives, we have beliefs, your beliefs generate your energy leads to action. And if all of that is leading to things that aren't helpful, the chemical imbalance that is also being created because of all of this, definitely that can express in clinical depression. I'm not talking like, oh, I'm kind of down today. I'm talking like clinical depression. This is real. Insomnia, yeah. I mean, really hard to sleep when we have cortisol being kicked out chronically. And all of my 11 chemicals that are responsible for my sleep-wake cycle are now completely out of balance. Yeah, it's really hard to sleep. And then I got the really busy mind going about all the things I'm worrying about and should have done differently and need to think about. And yeah, hard to sleep when the mind is super busy. Obviously, a lot of this could lead to personal problems, right? Especially if we're turning to things like alcohol or substance, or it's impacting our connections, our communication, our relationships. This is why I say literally everything could potentially be a consequence, which is why I really hope it's something that people are going to really take super seriously. For many, many years, I've been doing this for a long time. And very often I would do the on-site health screenings back in the day when people did those regularly. And I would often do the coaching at the end. And maybe I came across somebody who had high blood pressure and they would say something like this: oh, it's just because I'm stressed. Just because I'm stressed. Really? That just, the word just is fascinating to me. That's another word that I think we use way too much to dismiss and diminish things that are actually a big deal. I'm very pleased that we're having a lot of conversations about stress and burnout resiliency because we need them to help people understand that stress is at the root of almost everything. Chronic stress, right? Because a human was not designed to be in chronic fight or flight. And yet here we are. And then you add on top of that, like I said before, the choices you do or don't make because you're stressed. I don't know. Let's talk about what some of those are and if they're actually helpful. Um, how to deal with burnout. So identifying where you are on that curve and what is contributing to it, I think is also important because you might be at the same level of burnout as someone else, but the contributing factors are very, very different. And so you have to identify your contributing factors so that you know what to do about it. But let's talk about managing stress. And here's where it's going to be super simple. This is the easiest thing you'll ever hear. Don't kick into fight or flight if there is no threat to your life. Super simple. Simple in theory, very difficult in reality, because it literally means you have to change your mind, change the way your mind works. We're programmed for fight or flight. It is 100% natural. When you are faced with something you don't like, you don't understand, you didn't ask for, you don't agree with, you're afraid of, you're surprised by, you're overwhelmed by, totally natural to kick into fight or flight, to have anger, irritation, frustration, worry, fear, guilt, shame, doubt, judgment, criticism, woulda, coulda, shoulda, what if, what if, what if. All of those emotions, reactions, and thought patterns are tied to your survival mode, which means whenever you have that emotion, reaction, or thought pattern, you're kicking out cortisol, you're kicking into fight or flight. Very often that activating event, the trigger that got you going in that way, is not an actual threat to your life. So not only is your survival mechanism not necessary, but it's not helpful and it's probably harmful. There are some cases where kicking into fight or flight is helpful and necessary. I imagine some of you have roles where kicking into fight or flight is helpful or necessary. That's going back to that first graph where the peak, right? I am zeroed in, I'm honed in, there's an emergency, don't think, just do, autopilot, go for it. Save your life or someone else's life. For most people, that is not the case. And for most of the activating events, it's not the case. And that means we have to identify what our triggers are, the person, place, situation, or scenario that's getting me into that thought pattern or emotion or reaction. And then just ask myself, is this a threat to my life? And if the answer is no, then I, Michelle, get to figure out what to do about it. Because if you can avoid kicking out cortisol when it's not necessary, you avoid all of the other things that would otherwise follow. Which is why I really firmly believe that if we learned how to better manage stress, how to address our stress, so many of the other things would just naturally not be there. They would just go away. The hard part is changing your mind, right? To not kick into fight or flight when it's not necessary. But you spend time on that, I am very willing to bet that everything else will come a lot easier as well. I'm going to go into details on these other ones here. So social support, so incredibly important. We are pack animals. We're designed to operate as a pack. If you think about all of the benefits of being part of a pack, there are others who are there to teach me, to guide me, to nurture me, to support me, to challenge me, to celebrate me, to hold me accountable, to share resources, to share ideas, to share and problem solve, to have fun, to go be curious and explore. That's what we're supposed to do. And yet, some of us somehow, we don't either have a pack with all of the elements necessary being addressed, or we do, we're just not utilizing our support network for a variety of reasons, right? So you might either need to be proactive to fill in the gaps if you have elements that are not being taken care of, Then I have to figure out how do I bring that into my network. If you have the network, but you're choosing to not use it, then you have to decide, why am I doing that? And that could be a variety of reasons, right? Maybe, and again, I am not disparaging my perfectionists. I love my perfectionists. I have so many of them in my life that I love dearly. I also see how hard it is, and which is why I am working hard to help everybody let go of that tendency. Um, I know this because people have told me this, that if they ask for help, it's kind of a sign that I'm not perfect. And they hold themselves to a very high expectation. And they just expect to know everything and to be able to do everything because I should. I have a friend who's started new jobs several times since I've known her. And every time she starts a new job, the first week, she's so hard on herself and just really irritated with herself because she doesn't know everything. Well, why should you know everything in a week? Well, I just should. That's not an answer. That's ridiculous. There's no reason you should know even a fraction of your job after 1 week. It's it's acknowledging that, right? Some people have a hard time asking for help because they don't want to be judged. They might fear that someone will judge them as less than capable, or that they'll be judged against other people. Like, well, that person doesn't need help, so why do you need help? What's wrong with you? Why can't you do it? Some people don't want to ask for help because they don't want to burden somebody else. So you identify, why am I not seeking support? And then let me figure out if that's serving me or not. And if not, then we'll work on paving a different path on that one. Evaluate your options. And I think this is really going to that growth mindset concept, right? So when we're in fight or flight, this is normal. There are no options. It is just do this. This is all I know. This is all that's possible. Every other thing that you suggest to me is stupid, not going to work. No, why bother? Leave me alone. No, this is survival mode. I remember coming out of a yucky experience in life, and this was me. No, I'm fine. Leave me alone. It's fine. That's dumb. Don't, why? Just no, I got it. Just leave me alone. Move on. I'll figure it out. It's good. That's survival. And for some situations, that's very, very useful and helpful. At some point, it no longer is. And then, like, living life like this is kind of awful, really. It's really kind of awful. You have to be willing to open up, to look around, to invite possibility. Not that it's going to come to fruition, but you can at least say, interesting, maybe. Let me explore that. Let me learn more. I didn't know that. Now I have a new perspective. Now I have this thing that I didn't know, and now I know it. And now maybe I realize there might be other things that I don't know. So maybe I'll approach life in that way instead of approaching life as in I know everything. And anything anyone else tells me is dumb or wrong or no or whatever. It's a choice. So you are proactive, right? You have to be an active participant in your own life. Reframing your thinking. Like I said, the mind is the hardest thing to change. I would say unless and until you change it, nothing else changes. So digging into the internal narrative, thinking even specifically about the words that float around in there. Let me ask a couple of questions and just type in the chat if you're like, oh yeah, that's me. Okay. A list of words. I already mentioned one, just. How often do you just yourself? Can't, have to, should, shouldn't, need to, supposed to, not supposed to, always, never, only. Ooh, I like that one too. Yep. Right? All of these. I see a lot of yeses. Ooh, because. Oh, I like that one too. Yep. How about but? Who's a comma butter? Do we have any comma butters? Comma butter. Tell me something good. Comma but. Tell me all the ways it's not good enough. Mm-hmm. It's fine. Oh, I like that. It's fine. The what ifs, right? The what ifs. Yeah. So just dig into those words and ask yourself, is it true? Especially if we're using always and never. I am very willing to bet neither of those are true, right? Rarely is something always, and rarely is something never. And yet, when we use those words, we have boxed ourselves in. Have to, need to, should, shouldn't. Those sound like rules. What happens when you don't follow a rule? How do you feel? What happens when somebody tells you what you have to do, what you should or shouldn't do? How do you feel about that? And yet we tell ourselves those words all the time. How do you feel when someone dismisses you with a just or an only? And yet you probably dismiss things all the time with a just or an only. So the particular words really do set a tone. They set a tone and a belief and an expectation, and all of that follows, then creates your energy. Your energy leads to action, and your actions lead to outcomes. So if you want a different outcome, you need to do different actions. In order to engage in different actions, and I know I am using the word need to because that's actually accurate. You need to do different things. If you are going to engage in different actions, you need to have a different kind of energy. The only way to get a different kind of energy is to have a different belief and feeling. And the only way to generate different beliefs and feelings is to use different words. So if I'm looking at an outcome and I don't like it, I got to go all the way back to here, which is why I said the mind is the hardest thing to change. But unless and until you change it, nothing else will. We often want to just kind of slap a band-aid on the outcome, like some quick fix. It doesn't work that way. This requires a lot of hard work, which is very often either why we don't do it or why we do it, but it takes so long and it's so hard that we kind of stop doing it. Just keep doing it, I promise. As somebody who has done that hard work, because believe me, I was all of those things very regularly. And it didn't happen overnight, but it happened because I was intentional about it and I recognized the power of how that works. That your thoughts generate your feelings create energy, your energy leads to action, your actions lead to the outcome. That's what I'm in control of. If I want to change an outcome or have a chance of a different outcome, I have to do all of my steps. So do the work. I promise it will help. Nutrition, I could talk for hours and hours and hours on this one. Let's just go basic. Think about what a human, not your specific human, not your unique named self, but just a human being. What does a human being require in order to thrive? It requires a variety of raw materials. Where do we get those raw materials from? We get them from real food. So real food that you could find in theory outside, growing in trees, growing in the ground, roaming in the pasture, swimming in the water, raw materials that are going to be used for my human to create, develop, grow, and operate properly. So that would be vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, phytochemicals, different types of fiber. Primarily, you find all of those things in carbohydrates. Those would be plants or foods that come from plants. We need a whole bunch of variety and abundance of amino acids. Those come from foods that give us protein. And we need a bunch and a variety of fatty acids, and those come from foods that give us fat. And then we have to put those raw materials in our bodies in appropriate amounts at the appropriate time in the appropriate ratios so that our bodies can operate optimally. And it's pretty complicated, but yet it's actually really simple. Just break it down, super simple, eat real food, learn nutrition. Here's a quick one. I wrote a little book called The PFF is Your BFF Handbook. But PFF is your BFF, protein, fat, fiber is your best friend forever. Steady blood sugar is the key to your life. It's the key to your health and happiness. It's the key to the health and happiness of people around you. Because the opposite of steady blood sugar is spiking and crashing blood sugar, all of which increases your risk for a bunch of things to not be great. Increases your risk for Insulin resistance increases the release of cortisol, alters your blood sugar regulating hormones, insulin and glucagon, alters your hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin, has an impact on your mood, your energy, your metabolism, your ability to think and function correctly. And when your blood sugar crashes, you're going to eat sugar. And then you're probably, if you're like most people, you're going to beat yourself up about eating sugar because you weren't going to eat sugar and now you ate sugar. And what's wrong with you? You have no willpower. You might as well eat something else to make yourself feel better. And then you'll try harder tomorrow. If we just avoid that, you avoid all of that. So PFF, it's life-changing. I promise you, protein, fat, fiber every 2 to 4 hours. Most of your nourishment early and often, much less of it as you get closer to bedtime. And then there's movement. Movement is medicine, head to toe, inside and out. There is some kind of movement that will benefit every element of this. However, there is not one kind of movement that takes care of every element of this. Back in the day, it was called life. We moved our bodies. That's just what we did. We were up and down and pushing and pulling and carrying and lifting. We were not stationary. If you were stationary, it's because you were sick, injured, or dying. And if you're sick, injured, or dying, your human is going to try to save you by kicking out cortisol, slowing down metabolism, conserving energy. Except you're not sick, injured, or dying. You're probably doing your job. And that maybe requires sitting down. So we have to move. However you can get this into your life. Exercise is not punishment. So this is a big part of the attitude, right? Like, I have to exercise. No, you don't. You don't have to do anything. You would probably benefit from moving your body. So let's think about what the benefits are and then figure out how to do as much as I can, as hard as I can, as often as I can, how to incorporate and encompass all of the different components so that I strengthen my heart and my lungs and help to expand and make my arteries nice and flexible, how to nourish my brain because it's elevating heart rate and bringing additional blood supply that's carrying oxygen and nutrition, helping to grow my neurological pathways so I can think and function more efficiently, helping to burn energy because stress is energy. And if I don't physically release it, probably going to do something in me not great. Strengthen all of my other muscles so that I have the ability to do life. And maybe it's my job, maybe it's my fun activities in life. It's just easier and more enjoyable because I'm strong. Help strengthen my bones so I don't have to worry about being at risk for osteoporosis and then falling and breaking a bone and it doesn't heal and then life goes downhill really, really, really fast. My flexibility so I can continue to have a range of motion to be independent and functioning. I mean, literally, movement is medicine for everything. You just have to do it. You just have to do it. I know that's, yes, just, that's right. You just have to do it. Thank you. Somebody just ordered my handbook. I think you'll find it very helpful. It's like the quick and dirty on nutrition. That's it. It's like, boom, here it is. We don't have to get complicated. Reevaluate priorities. It implies that you actually know what your priorities are. And if you've never written them down, I encourage you to do it. Get the words out of your head on paper. So many people struggle putting real words to paper. What it's also going to help you do is evaluate if you're actually living in alignment. You say these things are important. Are you spending your time, money, and energy in ways that actually reflect that? There's a good chance that maybe you're not. Maybe you're spending time, money, and energy on other stuff. That's not important. That adds no value in real life. Maybe I'm just kind of willy-nilly, mindlessly spending those things. And I just, wow, was not being intentional. And now I can be intentional. Maybe I recognize that I've forgotten a few things on the list. I'm always shocked at how many people don't put themselves on their own list. You should be on, yes, you should. You should be on your list of priorities. If you're not on your list, we have to talk. We need to dig deep into that. You know, and then we do what we can, again, to nurture and nourish our own human. A deep breathing exercise, right? So easy. Breathe. And yet we're not good at it. So we're just going to do very quickly. Here's what we're going to do. Inhale through the nose, expand your rib cage. Think of it like a beach ball. You want to inflate your beach ball as much as you can, and exhale through the lips. Everybody, let's do it together. Okay, that was like 10 seconds. You could do that for a minute, I bet. You would probably do it for like 3 minutes. You could build in a breathing practice to help reestablish your ability to breathe correctly. A natural part of fight or flight is to hold your breath. So double check when you are in a fight or flight mode. Are you holding your breath? There's a good chance that you are. If your mind is in the past or in the future, there's a good chance you're holding your breath, because those are some version of fight or flight. We want to reestablish the ability to breathe so that we're just better at it naturally. Get back to breathing like a baby who's nice and content, breathes, right? And it's something that we have to reestablish. How do you know you are successful? You will know. You'll feel it. You look different. You feel different. You have a different energy. You have a different outlook. You are doing things that you weren't doing before, or not doing things that you were doing before. Acknowledge your signs of success. Do not come about yourself. Do not shrug it off like no big deal. Celebrate your hard work, because healthy choices are hard. That is always the answer. I have lots of mottos. One of them is hard now, harder later. And I know that because I've lived it. I've done the easy thing in the moment, and it became a lot of hard work later. And I decided I don't ever want to do that hard work later. And to the best of my ability, I'm going to avoid it. And so I try as hard as I can to make the hard choice in the moment, which actually isn't that hard once you continue to do it. Anything new is always hard, but you establish these principles and protocols, and everything else benefits. You just start to realize that, wow, that's really worth it. These interactive toolkits are super worth it. So if you have not yet explored, please take some time to do that and utilize all the available resources with your EAP, probably some community-based resources, maybe other resources within Penn State Health, which I'm sure you have a robust variety to access. One more thing before we officially sign off, here's all the ways to access, which you will get a copy of this, but we are doing a challenge, hopefully to set a Guinness World Record for a micro break of mindfulness. We would love everybody to join. So click on the QR or hit mindstreamlive.com and get the information on how to participate in that. For my books, if you just type my name into Amazon, it will come up, Michelle, Zellner. I don't know if I can type and talk at the same time. Or go to my website, betterbeings.net. I have a podcast, blogs, sign up for my newsletter, connect with me on LinkedIn, socials, all the things. Would love to stay connected. So betterbeings.net is where you find all things me. I've written a couple of books. I think you might find them both helpful. And yes, the recording will be available. Not sure when, but I know you will get access to it. And I know this because people have reached out to me. So I know people listen to the recording. So that's also nice.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. And yes, the recording should be in your email by the end of the week. Usually we can get them up in a day or so, but that will contain the recording and the PowerPoint slides. So if you don't get to scan this QR code just now, it will be coming in your email. But Michelle, that such a wonderful presentation. We love having you. And for everyone that joined us today, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. Our next Lunch and Learn will be on August 29th, and we will have some folks from Penn State Extension joining us and talking about home food preservation. So kind of like Michelle alluded to with eating, whole natural foods, they'll be joining us to talk about how we can preserve those foods to eat them throughout the year. So we're looking forward to that. If there's no other questions, I will go ahead and end the presentation. But again, thank you to everyone. Thank you to Michelle. I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. Have a great one. Bye-bye.